Good afternoon, Ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. I'm going to continue the discussion regarding the different assessment tools used in measuring effective learning. So, let's move on to the next, which is observation. What is meant by observation as an assessment tool? It is an assessment tool that involves looking out for the presence or absence of behaviors of learners in a natural setting. This is a tool that uses by teachers to know someone's behavior in a class, if the learners are like this or like that. Mostly teachers will notice first if the child is naughty, noisy, and etc. It allows the teacher to assess student behavior in the actual teaching and learning process, unlike other forms of assessment that requires separate time with the student to answer the measuring instrument. This assessment is different unlike other form of assessment that require a student to answer, such as the previous discussed assessment, because in this, teachers are only going to observe students' behavior. This method is a rich source of clues that can be both obtrusive and unobtrusive measures of attitude, beliefs, disposition, character, and etc. In obtrusive assessment, students are being aware that they are assessed, and this assessment is well planned. However, these have advantages and disadvantages. Advantage, since students are aware, so they will be motivated to do well in class. However, to those who are not used of being observed or watched, will feel awkwardness or act uncomfortably and have a desire to please the teacher. While in unobtrusive assessment, students are not aware that they are being observed. It is done by teachers in a day-to-day basis in which teachers observe more about the learning needs, styles, attitudes, and many more about the child. Maybe structured or unstructured. Unstructured observation. It is open-ended with no formal recording of what is observed as assessment process is ongoing. In unstructured observation, the observer has a freedom to decide and to observe everything, as there is no format to follow, because this is not systematic and it is unplanned. You have to be very clear of what to observe and list the behaviors and actions that will indicate the possession of the trait. As I mentioned earlier, it is not systematic and it is unplanned. But you still have to be very clear on what to observe. It must be relevant. However, there is still the need to record observed data right after actual observation time. In this, you can recall about the things you observe that have significant. And the observer should include both positive and negative behavior. Here is an example. A physical education teacher watches students play basketball in a school court. While the focus may be on the skill of playing basketball, like shooting or throwing the ball correctly. The teacher can also directly watch who play the clean game and who play on foul moves, or what we often term the dirty tricks. Such behavior is indicative of important affective characteristics, like honesty, patience, and positive disposition, which we aim to develop not only in PE but across the curriculum. Teacher is a great observer. Even though the focus is on the skill, still the teacher can notice students' behavior, in which behavior is important in measuring affective aspect that needed to be developed across the curriculum. Structured observation. You need to prepare a checklist or rating form before the actual observation, and this checklist defines the positive and negative behaviors indicative of the trait you wish to measure. The recording is straightforward as it just requires a check on the yes and no column for the presence or absence of behavior, respectively, or a check on the appropriate numerical and descriptive scale if rating scale is used. So structured observation is the opposite of unstructured observation, because in this, there is a format to follow. It's either a checklist or a rating form. It is planned because the observer already know what behavior to observe. Here are the examples for structured observation. The measure obtained from observation approach can be made more valid and reliable with the following guidelines. First, set a clear definition of the effective trait you want to observe. Second, prepare a checklist or rating scale that will define the more specific effective behavior you want to capture. This checklist or rating scale will also be used in collecting and recording your data. Third, consult with a colleague or expert about the behavior listed as doable for observation or not. You can try this with a sample of students. Fourth, have a colleague or colleagues to work with you in the actual observation time. Fifth, be clear on ethical issues. 6. Record the observation immediately. Use the checklist supplemented by anecdotal records that are an open-ended way to record observation. Record factual information and be cautious on personal interpretation and bias statements. 7. Review data, reflect on outcomes. 8. Decide future steps based on the observation results. 9. Adjust planning and apply interventions. 10. Monitor progress.